Hello and welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Monday, the 31st of July. I'm Aidan Macdonald and today I'm joined by Ryan McGinlay. Ryan, how are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Monday morning, but we're here to talk about Celtic, so silver lining and all that. I'm all good, mate. You all good?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Yeah, plenty to talk about today from a variety of topics. Obviously, you and I went live for the reaction to the Wolves game at the weekend, but there's been a bit more since then that's came out, so we'll have that to discuss as well as obviously starting to build up to the James Forrest testimonial, which takes place tomorrow. But before we get into all that, guys, for anyone that's interested, ticker tape down below and in the description of this video and podcast is a link to our latest subscription offer. It's £12 for a year's access to the website. Obviously, we really appreciate anybody can subscribe, guys. That allows us to do sort of videos like this, the match reaction, the Celtic moments that made me content that we're really enjoying doing at the weekend. So by supporting us through subscribing to the website, you allow us to be able to do videos like this, which we really enjoy. The current offer, as I was saying, it's for £12 for a year's access. That's running until Thursday. And at the moment, that'll get you access to things like the scouting report that Stuart Ross has up today on kind of three potential Jota replacements that Celtic could look at. Sort of three players that profile the exact same across several leagues in Europe. So that's the sort of latest content we have on the website, as well as videos with Ryan, big interviews with Tony, match analysis from me, Ryan, and Tony, and also data stuff from Juco James and Alan Morrison. So get yourself involved, guys, if you haven't already. So, Ryan, as we kind of come to discuss the main point of today's video, will Celtic be busy in the transfer market this week? Obviously, we know they brought in kind of three players last week, confirmed in terms of the two boys from South Korea, as well as Mike Navrosky. But obviously, I think a lot of fans, and I would include ourselves in this, I think it's fair to say, would hope to see the club do a bit more before the end of the transfer window. And Brendan Rodgers himself, he was asked this question after the 1-1 draw with Wolves on Saturday in Dublin, and he'd said that I think it's important that we bring some. I thought it was important that we brought some players in early to settle them and allow them to adapt. I didn't want to wait for people to go before bringing them in, but we'd hoped to add a few more before the window shuts. Probably after the Ross County game, there's a long way still to go in the window. I guess from those comments, Ryan, it does seem that Brendan Rodgers is quite relaxed in terms of the business so far, and he's not too worried that Celtic don't have the right resources or anything. But I guess, firstly, what's your opinion on the window so far? And secondly, kind of your reaction to those comments from Rodgers?
I think if I was to give it a rating out of 10 at the moment, I think it would be 6 or 7. I think Celtic have signed a lot of players that are going to come in and make a difference in the coming years, but maybe they've only signed one or maybe two that are going to make an impact now, and probably Navrosky, you would say, who they've put out a significant outlay in order to secure his services from Legia Warsaw. I think the rest of the signings will come in and out of the team. You seen that at the weekend. They were coming off the bench. I know that was their first game, but you'd assume that would be their role, sort of coming in and out of the team. You need bodies. You're going to have 4 competitions that you're playing in next season, so you need guys that are able to come in and out of the team when required and make up the numbers effectively. But yeah, I think if Celtic are going to make a good window, a great window, then I think they need to be maybe strengthening in places that are already strong, in my opinion. I think if we're bringing in people for positions, then that's great, but I think we need competition for places too. We've spoken about goalkeeping position, you talk about the left wing as well. I know Fabrizio Romano last night was talking that Celtic are in the market for a left winger. He doesn't know exactly who. It'd be helpful if he did know, so that we could write about it and talk about it. But yeah, you're just hoping that we get a replacement through the door for Jota, because as I've pointed out, I feel like I say every day in the briefing, but it's double digits for goals and assists, and you've lost them in the team. So those goals need to be replaced, or else other players need to step up. And although we had so many good performers last season, you want somebody else that is going to take the load off of those players and contribute on their own accord. But yeah, I think right now we're on a 6 out of 10 window, 4, 5, 6 signings, but I think 2 or 3 real statement signings, maybe signings that are going to come in and instantly command a place in the first team. If Celtic do that, then I think they'll be in a great place ahead of next season. But right now, there's a month to go, or just over a month to go in the window. I'm still keen to see what business that Celtic do in the window. Brendan Rodgers seems adamant that there will be business done in the window, so yeah, it's a wait and see process just now. they're probably gauging the market to see who's available, who's going to be available for their club, or who's not going to be selected by their club, rather. So they'll be checking that out, and then they'll be acting accordingly. But yeah, 6 out of 10 so far. Room for improvement, but I'm reasonably pleased with the players that have been brought in so far.
Yeah, I think all the players that have been brought in, fans are relatively excited, whether you view them as projects or maybe somebody like Nawrocki who will hopefully be a first team starter. I think fans overall are quite happy with the business that's been done. But yeah, it would. I think 6 out of 10 is a fair sort of number, Ryan, to give it in terms of a score, just because of the fact that you did lose Jota, and that's probably seen as an area that we're hoping there's going to be a sort of marquee signing brought in. I think if you can get that sorted along with maybe a goalkeeper, that would settle a lot of fans down going into the new season. It's not necessarily two positions that need to be filled immediately for the game on Saturday. And as Brendan Rodgers said, he's pretty relaxed about that. But I think it would be good to kind of so the couple of games before the Rangers game, which is obviously September, just before the international break, Sunday the 3rd, I believe, it would be good if the club could have the sort of players in a couple of weeks before that. Firstly, because obviously the transfer window will be shut by the time it comes to that game. But secondly, it would give the players a couple of games to bed in, particularly a goalkeeper who you would be hoping would then start that game at Ibrox. You wouldn't be wanting them to be coming in, right on deadline day, and then the first game they go into is that match against Rangers at Ibrox if that can be avoided. So fingers crossed they can get a bit more business done. And Rodgers sounds like there will be more players coming in. He's maybe not sure exactly on the when that will be, but he could be being a wee bit coy about that and not wanting to give too much away. You never know. Maybe there is a chance that there will be players in before Ross County, but also if we take those comments at face value, sounds like the fans might need to wait a wee bit longer. But fingers crossed they can sort of do a bit more work, because we know they've got the funds there from the Champions League, even before the transfer for Jota. Whatever they got out of that, 18, 19 million pounds from the 25 that he went for. So fingers crossed we can see a bit more business in the transfer front over the next 3 weeks or so. But in terms of like Brendan Rodgers, but moving on to a slightly different angle, Callum McGregor was also speaking after the game on Saturday, and he was kind of asked a question about Rodgers' sort of return to the Celtic and how he got on in those sort of that first week. And he'd said it's been very similar. We had a meeting really early on with the non-international guys, and then it was the same as soon as we came in. There was a PowerPoint about understanding and underlining the principles of what the club's been about and what we believe we can do better. It's been that same methodical approach, calm and incisive, and that kind of information which makes people sit back and really take notice of and try to learn. I think that's one of the best things about him. He tries to help everybody and tries to teach them about the game. He's a master tactician, and if you really go and pick his brain, then there's some wonderful information in there, and he's so good at getting that across to the guys on a football level as well. Obviously, at Hein, we know Callum McGregor's a big fan of Brendan Rodgers. It's been widely discussed at this point that he went and had that meeting with the manager when he was in Mallorca, and that was kind of one of the things that convinced him to come back, as well as obviously Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay going to speak to him. But it's obviously great to hear him speaking so positively about the manager. It's probably not a surprise, but I think it's just hearing things like, he's a master tactician. It's always good for the sort of supporters to think that about the manager. And yeah, I just thought those comments are quite interesting from Callum McGregor.
Yeah, I think it's been a while now since, obviously Brendan Rodgers has been back for over a month now, nearly 2 months, and there doesn't seem to be any sort of dissenting voices about his return. And I think a lot of that is down to Callum McGregor and the comments that he's came out with, the fact that he's pretty much on board, he's very much on board with Brendan Rodgers being back at the club and back in this managerial capacity. He's quite clearly delighted. He's the manager that's got the best out of Brendan Rodgers, I would say, in his Celtic career. But it's toss up between him and Postecoglou. But in terms of overall impact, I think Cal McGregor has a lot to thank in terms of Brendan Rodgers making him the best version that he can be in a midfield sense. Yeah, it's I'm delighted to see that Brendan Rodgers is back. I'm even more delighted the fact that our captain is so happy that he's back also. You hear about PowerPoints, you hear about the way his man management is spot on. These are all buzzwords, I know that, but at the same time, you're happy to hear this. And if the captain's coming out and saying this, then you've got to assume, you can only assume that the rest of the group is very happy with what's going on in training and off the pitch as well. And hopefully we see that translated on the pitch to wins and good victories and lots of goals next season, starting tomorrow, but then hopefully on Saturday against Ross County. You know, it seems like a really happy place just now. Brendan Rodgers seems happy in his press conferences and his interviews, and you know all the players look happy too. You see pictures in training of them all smiling and clearly having a good time at their work. So you know that's all you want to see from players, and hopefully that translates on the pitch because it looks quite happy off of it.
I think it is a sort of real positive atmosphere at the moment from what we can say. Obviously, some of the sort of social media content has been a bit limited for Celtic over the summer, whether that has been sort of in they were potentially anticipating a bit of sort of kind of setbacks from fans or sort of a backlash maybe after the appointment. I don't know, but anything that we have seen in terms of the small sort of samples of interviews and press conferences have been really positive. And like you say, the club seems in a pretty good place at the moment. We obviously hope they'll be able to add some more players, but morale-wise, it seems to be quite strong. And you can imagine that Brendan Rodgers having a whole summer to work with the players, something he didn't have in the 3 pre-seasons he was involved in his first spell. You know, there's no Champions League qualifiers. We made a big deal about it with Ange last summer. Just this is the time that he can get work into the players, and as you would hope that really they're going to be kind of fit and firing going into this Ross County game on Saturday, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think they will be. Obviously, you're talking about the fact that they've had the full pre-season training under Brendan Rodgers. They'll be used to his methodology. They'll be used to the way that he wants his team to set out and play against the opposition. It'll also help the fact that there's players there that have worked under Brendan Rodgers before, and James Forrest and Cal McGregor. So they'll be like extra coaches, at least on the pitch, to tell these new players that aren't used to Rodgers' style of play how to play that way. That's always really handy as well. Scott Bain and Anthony Ralston as well. I know Ralston's been injured, but I'm sure he will have been a big presence off the pitch and telling players exactly what to do and what the new manager expects of the players in the process. Yeah, it's all positives, and you know, I've had plenty of time to work with the players. They know what's expected of them now, and you're just hoping that bears fruit tomorrow and the weekend. But yeah, everything's positive. We just need to see it in a competitive element against Ross County on Saturday. But I'm pretty confident going into the new season that Celtic can continue where they left off last season, especially under a elite manager like Brendan Rodgers. I feel like, and I was talking to my mates about this last night, it feels as if Brendan Rodgers is one of the marquee signings as well. You know, people talk about a marquee winger, maybe a marquee goalkeeper, players that can come in and instantly make a difference. I think Celtic have got a marquee manager, and it helps that he was happy to come back, even with the way that everything left, or the way everything finished 4 years ago. The fact that he's came back, there's that sort of fanfare. I know there was a few dissenting voices, but not anymore. Most people seem happy with his appointment. So yeah, it does feel like a marquee signing in terms of a managerial sense. You're just hoping he can bring that elite mentality and elite management to the first team and make us a bit of a behemoth, both domestically and in Europe.
Absolutely, Ryan. And you'd imagine this is where Brendan Rodgers thrives. This is kind of what he's known for, world-class coaching, regardless of what people might think of him as a person, etc. Everybody knows he's a good coach. Even there was an interesting article, I think it was published by The Athletic last season, kind of about how it kind of, at the end, it was a bit of a struggle for Rodgers in terms of maybe he lost the dressing room a wee bit, but even the players that were speaking to them for that piece all said that no matter how bad kind of things might have been going, the coaching was still world class on the pitch, and he was still far and away the best manager they'd worked under. So things like that to me say that this is probably the time of the season he'll thrive, being able to get that work into the players, not having 2 games a week, etc. Obviously, I know there is 2 matches this week, but that'll be the first time really since last season that Celtic have had 2 games so close together. So I think this will be a time of the kind of season that Rodgers will thrive, and hopefully we'll kind of see that bear fruit across the season, him being able to get work in at the players over a decent period of time without the stress of Champions League qualifiers. But I was going to come on to a wee point about kind of tactical tweaks that we'd maybe noticed in the game at the weekend. But before I do that, there was a comment from Jason Lee that I found interesting. He was saying Tomoki Iwata is pretty good at right back for the time being. I know we kind of discussed that on Saturday, Ryan, both in our instant analysis and also on the pod, but yeah, Iwata looked pretty composed on Saturday, didn't he?
I think he's looked composed through the whole of pre-season. To be honest, I don't think he's put a foot wrong. I think he knows that the position that he prefers in midfield is going to be a very, very highly contested position, even more so with the fact that Quan's now in the team. So that's another body for the defensive midfielder role. We know that Callum McGregor likes playing there. In fact, it's a double pivot that might change things. He might play a wee bit higher up. But yeah, I think Iwata now knows if he's going to get into this team, he's just got to play where he's required. And, at right back, he's not put a foot wrong. His distribution's been good. His defensive abilities or capabilities have been good. He's quite good one-on-one as well. He hardly ever gets beaten in that one-on-one situation. He's very intense. I just think he's a consummate professional. That's not to take away from his footballing abilities, because I think he's a good midfielder as well. He's got a good range of pass, but I think his defensive abilities are really good as well. He's 26. He's in the prime of his career. He knows how to get around a football pitch. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with where he is at the moment. Obviously, if Ralston's back, then you prefer a natural right back to be playing just for the cohesiveness of the side. But if Ralston isn't ready for Saturday, I've got no issues whatsoever with Iwata coming in and taking his place. I think maybe they're already preparing for that. The fact that he's played every game, they might know that Ralston might not be ready for the start of the season, and they're getting Iwata ready by playing him in that position. I don't even think he's played in the midfield in any of the pre-season games. At least I can't seem to think of a time that he's slotted in there, or if he did, it was very fleetingly. But the majority of where he's been playing is right back, and he looks pretty comfortable there. So if he does play there, then I've got no problems with it.
I think it's probably worth discussing if Ralston isn't going to be fit for the Rangers game. And if we assume that Alistair Johnson, I think it was quoted he was going to be out for up to 3 months, if we kind of take that as being the case, how would you feel about Iwata starting away at Ibrox, Ryan? Would you be okay with that? I appreciate it's still a few games away and a lot can happen between now and then in terms of the transfer market, so they might even try and bring someone in. But say no other right backs came in and Ralston was either injured or just about to return and Alistair Johnson was still out, would you be okay with Iwata featuring at centre back for that match? Not centre back, sorry, right back.
I don't know if I'd be happy about it, because it would then show that we've not really went back into the market. In an ideal world, Celtic would be playing Alistair Johnson at right back. I think everybody can agree with that. He's the standout right back, I would say, in the Scottish League. Never mind just at Celtic. I think he's the best defensive fullback in the league by some distance. He's so effective at what he does. He's one of these players that you miss, and you see a real difference when he's not in the team for his aggression as well as his play on the pitch. So I think if it was Iwata, I'd be slightly concerned just due to the opposition. They've strengthened over the summer. You've got to admit they've brought in some players, and I would prefer a right back to be playing against Rangers rather than a makeshift right back. I know that you can do it. You can maybe get away with it against teams like, I don't know, Ross County, like St Johnstone as well. But I think against Rangers, that would be a position that they would pinpoint and look to exploit. I would want Celtic to be playing a right back in that game. It all depends on when Alistair Johnson is back. You're just hoping he's back as soon as possible and Brendan Rodgers can get the best out of him, because I think he's one of the players that Brendan Rodgers can really, really improve as the season goes on. There's so much there to work with. He's already a good player, but I think he can go up on another level under Brendan Rodgers' leadership and management. So, yeah, in terms of Iwata, I don't know if I would be happy about it. I think he would do a good job, but at the same time, I would much rather a right back be playing in that position. I think out of the two, I'd probably pick Ralston because he's more of a natural right back. But we'll get to that bridge when we we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, I guess.
I think it is just unfortunate having both Ralston and Johnson injured at the same time. It's just a bit of a nightmare. Obviously, Johnson had a knock near the end of last season, kind of came back, played some minutes against Aberdeen in the Scottish Cup final, and then he went and got injured in international duty. I believe it's a back issue he's struggling with right now.
Mm-hmm.
Ralston, I'm unsure on the exact extent of his injury, but fingers crossed, hopefully both of them, but at least one of them's back and has played a couple of games before we go to Ibrox, because if that isn't going to be the case, then I know Tony and I discussed it on the sort of squad depth video a couple of weeks ago. We kind of pinpointed that really if there's going to be long-term injuries, this right back's got to become a priority position for Celtic in this window. along with a goalkeeper. And that was also before we'd seen Awata impress in a couple of games. But I think you're completely right to point out that you don't really want to be going into a game at Ibrox having to play a makeshift centre-back when you've still got, before that, kind of 3-4 weeks left in the window, and hopefully the players are back fit and it can be avoided. If it's a last-minute thing, because something crazy happens in terms of injuries, then fair enough. But, you'd hope that Celtic are kind of looking at that as a situation they aren't going to find themselves in. But also, we just need to keep an eye on it. But of the kind of analysis like that from myself and Ryan in terms of Awata and tactical tweaks, that was found in our instant analysis from the game at the weekend that we conducted. And to get access to that, you can subscribe to the website for £12 a year. The link for that's in the description and also the ticker tape of this video. It's www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Once again, guys, we really appreciate anyone that can subscribe. It allows us to do the morning briefing like this and match reaction at the weekend. So get yourself involved, guys, if you haven't already. So, Ryan, as we come on to maybe kind of news from yesterday, it was also Celtic were drawn away to Kilmarnock in the League Cup. That is going to be, is it the weekend of the 16th and 17th of August, I think, if I remember rightly. We don't know if it's going to be a Saturday or a Sunday yet. Obviously, I imagine it will be on television. I'm a wee bit unsure in terms of the sort of Viaplay situation. I know at the moment the League Cup games are still being shown, or they were being shown, sorry, for the group stage matches. Obviously, there was stuff about Viaplay kind of pulling a lot of their contracts. I know they're going to fulfil the Scotland, the international games at the moment anyway, but I'm unsure in terms of the knockout stages of the kind of the Viaplay Cup, as it's called. So we'll also need to keep a wee eye in terms of the coverage for that match. But it's Kilmarnock away, Ryan. It's probably not exactly an easy draw. Obviously, all the teams that are in the kind of latter stages have deserved to be there. Whether it's, they did well in the league last season, so they had a bye because they were featuring in Europe, or the fact they've won their groups or finished a strong second. So there was never going to be any sort of easy games in this round, but you'd imagine there could have been less complicated ties than Kilmarnock away at Rugby Park.
Yeah, but I still think it's a favourable tie towards Celtic. Any game that Celtic are playing, Celtic should be the favourites to win that game, regardless if it's on a grass pitch or a plastic pitch. I think that's the biggest concern for me, the fact that Celtic need to play on a plastic pitch again. I could go on all day talking about plastic pitches and how wrong they are, and how I get the reasons why these teams have them, because they're easier to maintain. But I just don't think they should be in the professional game. But that's a rant for a different day. I could go on for 20 minutes talking about that. Yeah, it's a Premiership team. It's an away game. Celtic will bring quite a sizable away crowd, you would imagine, to that, especially if it's cup sort of allocations. Be interesting to see how Celtic perform under Brendan Rodgers on a plastic pitch. I think they had trouble in the past, especially at places like Livingston under Brendan Rodgers. I know he hasn't won there. That's an unwanted record that he'll want to break this season for sure. But yeah, you've got to beat whoever's in front of you. It's an away game. It's one of those games that I think Celtic should win, and win comfortably. They didn't have many problems there last season. They scored quite a few goals at Rugby Park, and I would expect the same this time around. I'm not too concerned about it. If Celtic show up and show their A game, then I think there'll be too much for Kilmarnock. But these are cup games; anything can happen. But I'm not too concerned. I think if Celtic turn up and do well, they'll win.
I think the two games at Rugby Park last season were among some of Celtic's best performances.
Agree.
The first one, I think, was at 5-0 and then 4-0. It was kind of two absolute routes, really, that probably could have been a lot more goals in those games. So I think the sort of plastic pitch fear that we maybe had at one point seemed to have been conquered under Ange, whether that be Livingston or Kilmarnock. Obviously, Hamilton aren't on top flight anymore. But yeah, obviously, Brendan Rodgers did have issues on it the last time. I don't think, maybe that was just to do with the players, maybe more in his style. I don't think there was anything really tactical there. I think there was unlucky with injuries on that surface as well. I remember Boyata getting injured down there a couple of times, Joseph Simonovic as well. But it seemed to be the players kind of got that out of their system the last two seasons, and hopefully that will kind of remain the case in this campaign. I was just double checking there while you were talking, Ryan. It's the weekend of the 19th and the 20th. It is for that Kilmarnock tie, not the 16th and the 17th. So yeah, it's not been confirmed what day yet, but the weekend of August the 19th or the 20th will be when Celtic will face Celtic will face Kilmarnock, at Rugby Park in the round of 16. So obviously Brendan Rodgers, I imagine, will be keen to sort of build on Andrew's success last season and try and get a treble and obviously win the League Cup for the third year in a row. So obviously he'll realise how important it is to kind of start well in these cup competitions. And yeah, I think it'll be a decent test for Celtic down at Kilmarnock. You'll kind of go there before you'll have to play them in the league. So it will be a team you'll be playing for the first time this season when you make the trip down to Ayrshire. So yeah, I think it'll be an interesting tie, and whether or not kind of Kilmarnock will go back to open up both ends for away fans, I don't know, given it's a League Cup game, but we need to keep an eye on that near the time. But I guess before we kind of get ready to wrap up, Ryan, I know you kind of want to talk a wee bit about James Forrest's testimonial. We'll probably have more of a match preview for it tomorrow. Yourself and I will be doing the predicted lineups as well as providing match reaction and a big match verdict from the game tomorrow night. But I guess just kind of going into it, how are you feeling about it? Obviously, it's as a testimonial, but it's also the last game before the competitive season starts. I know previously it might have been like James Forrest was the captain and there was maybe the players were having a bit of a laugh before testimonials or during them. You've seen with Scott Browns, etc. in the past. I know back in the day Celtic played in Newcastle's one for Alan Shearer, but obviously they were both right at the end of campaigns. But I guess for this one, Ryan, we'll kind of be hoping that despite it being a testimonial, Celtic are taking it, and I'm sure they will be taking it very seriously as the last pre-season friendly.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that Athletic Club will be taking it seriously as well as they step up in their preparations for a La Liga season. I looked them up last night, and they're managed by Ernesto Valverde, who used to be the Barcelona manager. So he'll expect high standards from Athletic's performance tomorrow night. It'll be a good game. It's a good occasion. James Forrest deserves all the credit and the praise because of how long he stayed at the club. A really good servant to the club. So many big goals. I was talking to Ryan the other day. He was talking about the Shakhtar Karagandhi goal, a massive goal in the grand scheme of Celtic's recent history in terms of a showcase moment in the Champions League qualifiers. But so many big goals. I remember his goal against Rangers at Celtic Park when I was still celebrating when they scored the third goal and the place went absolutely ballistic. Yeah, he's been at Celtic for a long time. I think his career's sort of dwindling down a wee bit due to injury and maybe a loss of pace or a loss of quality. I think he has declined a tiny bit, but at the same time, it's a good opportunity to really salute a great of the club. I mean, you look at his trophy haul. It's incredible how many trophies he's won during his time at the club. A real period of dominance, and he's managed to feature in large parts of it. So tomorrow night will be a really good occasion. I hope it's a good turnout. I'm sure it will be. I think Celtic are now kind of marketing it as, it's Brendan Rodgers' first game at Celtic Park again. I think that's what they should have been doing beforehand, because I think more people would have, if you put those two factors together, I think more people would go and see it. Regardless of what you think about the player that's playing, I think it'll be a good turnout tomorrow. It'll be a good game. Bilbao are a good side. Sorry, Athletic Club. You can't call them Bilbao. Athletic Club will be a good side. And yeah, it should be a good occasion. I'm looking forward to watching it.
I think that is probably a big selling point for a lot of people, Ryan. Brendan Rodgers is sort of first game back in his second spell as manager. That'll be what a lot of people are tuning in for, you're right. But it's also great to see Forrest getting honoured. 13 years at the club. I think if I'm right in saying there's only been 2 seasons he technically didn't win a trophy. That sort of first season when he made his debut, was it 09-010 season? I think, was it when Neil Lennon kind of was taking the team on a temporary basis at the end of the season. Also, Celtic didn't win anything at that campaign. And then obviously the COVID season. I mean, I guess technically they did get the Scottish Cup, but that was kind of held back from the campaign before. So when he's been here 13 years, there's only been 2 seasons, he's not won a trophy. That's very, very kind of mental stats when you really think about it. It shows you how successful he's been. And yeah, he's been a great servant to Celtic. I imagine Rodgers might kind of have him play a wee bit more of a part than Ange potentially did. Obviously, he was a bit unlucky with injuries under Ange, as well as that aforementioned COVID season a few years ago. So fingers crossed he can stay injury free and get the best out of what will probably be his last contract at the club, I would imagine. I think it's 2 seasons he's got, including obviously the one we're just about to go into left, Ryan. Is that right? So, fingers crossed that he kind of gets the most out of that and the club get the most out of him. But no, I'm sure it'll be a great occasion. And like I say, you and I will be there to provide plenty of coverage on the night. But yeah, I think we'll leave it for today, Ryan. Thanks very much for joining us today, guys. Once again, if anybody that's interested, ticker tape down below and in the description of this podcast. £12 for 12 months access to the website. Including in that, you'll get videos from Ryan, big interviews from Tony, scouting reports like the one we've got today from Stuart Ross on potential Jota replacements, data analysis from Duco James and Alan Morrison. There was obviously match reaction from myself and Ryan. So get yourself involved in that if you haven't already, guys. We really appreciate it, and that allows us to do sort of the morning briefing Monday to Friday as well, providing match reaction as well. So we appreciate it. All the information is down below if you're interested. But yeah, Ryan, we'll also be back tomorrow to discuss the James Forrest game in more detail as well as whatever breaking news is around. But thanks very much for joining us, Ryan.
Thanks very much for having me, mate.
Cheers, guys. We'll be back tomorrow.